Hey guys, it's Shira. On the last video I wanted to get my footing doing solo challenge runs, so I used a Gastrodon and managed to succeed. Now I want to change up the goal of the run. Like many of you guys, I love these kind of solo runs from MDB and Jrose11, but not to take away from their runs, but the question usually being asked is, can X Pokemon beat Y game? The answer to which is almost always yes, but sometimes I need to get to level 100 and or spam double teams to win. Then I saw the solo runs that Zwiggo does, where he tries to see how fast he can beat the game with Legendaries. I think this adds a little bit extra to solo runs and makes them way more interesting, so I'm gonna copy it. I want to use Pokemon that people actually used on their Gen 4 teams though, which brings me on to my Pokemon choice. I could have gone with any one of the starters, as almost everyone will have used one of them on their teams, though not everyone uses the correct starter Piplup, and some absolute mad lads even use Turtwig. Then I remember talking to my friends in school about our Gen 4 teams, and all of us had a Staraptor on our teams, and why wouldn't you? It's one of the first encounters in the game, and it's a great Pokemon. I think more people have used Staraptor than any single starter. Comment down below your Gen 4 team, and I bet that Staraptor is the most common Pokemon. Anyway, today I will be asking the question, how fast can Staraptor beat Pokémon Platinum? Taking a look at Staraptor's base stats is promising. It has a great attack stat, higher than some legendaries even, and Staraptor gets to use this attack with a pretty good base 100 speed. As we almost certainly will end up slightly over leveled, we should outspeed almost everything and hit like an absolute road roller. Hopefully this makes Staraptor a great Pokemon for a first solo speedrun. The only thing that could let Staraptor down with its great base stats would be a poor move pool, and while it is a narrow move pool, it has everything you could want. It can learn Roost for recovery, Toxic for stall, has great stab moves in Return and Brave Bird, and you can't talk about Staraptor's move pool without mentioning Close Combat. Who doesn't remember first evolving to Staraptor, then it learning this insane coverage move? Staraptor's pre-evolutions may have a hard time. Rock has huge physical bulk, and it will resist any move I can get before him, and the first Commander Mars fight can always be tough. Finally, the experience from my previous run taught me that the final Cyrus fight in the Distortion world is tough, and as always Cynthia will be challenging. Without any more preamble, let's see how quickly Staraptor can beat Pokemon Platinum. I have replaced Chimchar with a Starly, using the Universal Pokemon Randomizer. This will give the rival the only starter that isn't weak to flying late game, which should be the most challenging. Although it is meant to be a speedrun, so maybe he should have the one that's weak to me. I don't know, what do you guys think? The first rival fight is relatively uneventful. I just spam Quick Attack until I win. Did you know Quick Attack in Gen 4 has higher base power, is more accurate, and has priority over Tackle? I wonder why Tackle is made so bad this gen. I know it's only a starting move, but why doesn't it have at least 100% accuracy? Moving on, we name our Starly Obsidian, which is a hyper-obscure reference. You might get it if you like watching grown men decide the fate of the world, over a children's card game, sometimes with motorcycles. Anyway, next up it's the second rival fight. I start to quick attack down his Starly while it just growls at me. It manages to allow him 3 growls, which is a 60% attack debuff on me. I get the level up from taking out his Starly and learn Wing Attack, which should hopefully offset the stat losses with its higher base power. He sends out Piplup and I go for the Wing Attack, hoping for decent damage, and do maybe an 8th. It's not looking good. Piplup's Pound looks like it will get the KO first. Thankfully Barry decides that he needs to lower my attack even further, and I keep meshing Wing Attacks and manage to get a crit on the last one, winning the fight. I'm not sure if that crit mattered, but this was still a close fight, with Starly's frailty and lack of damage. So, let's talk Rock. I get to him at level 13 and give it a go. Starly learns Double Team by level up, so I'll be using it for this fight to try and limit how much grinding I have to do, especially for a fight this early into the run. The first fight does not end up going well, as I nearly get knocked out by a single Rock throw. I'm gonna need to get a few more levels for this one. As I'm grinding out levels on one of the gym's trainers, it highlights the problems with the double team strategy. I simply don't deal enough damage with Wing Attack to deal with these bulky rock types. And so I grind up a few levels on the patch of grass just north of Orberg, fighting only Ponytas and Macharps to gain more speed and attack EVs respectively. I get to level 17 and learn Endeavour. This should hopefully solve our damage issues, And by delaying the evolution I get Endeavor a level earlier, which reduces however leveled I get. The other benefit of evolving is getting access to Intimidate, one of the best abilities in all of Pokemon. Although Staravia is still quite frail, Intimidate often lets us take an extra hit or two. A few more attempts later, and with a whole lot of luck, we get the fight. I lead off with 6 double teams while Geodude sets up Stealth Rock and then mostly misses Rock Throws. The few that do end up landing are a good thing for us. The second wing attack I go for, and it crits, leaving Geodude in potentially one-shot range. This causes Rock to go for the potion. I then get extremely lucky as Geodude misses all his next attacks while I slowly whittle it down. Moving on to Onix, my luck continues as it misses 4 Rock Throws in a row, as we slowly take it down. This gets out Rock's second and final potion, which is important as it means Cranidos will not be getting a heal. I slowly grind down Onix, who lands 2 Rock Throws and leaves me on just 1 HP. Perfect. Cranidos comes out and I Endeavor, leaving it on 1 HP as it misses. With no potions left, I select Quick Attack for the priority and take out Cranidos. Sometimes 1 HP is all you. The next potentially difficult fight is with Mars in the Valley Windworks. Just before that, we pick up the TM for Pluck, which is the same damage as Wing Attack but steals berries if the opponent has one. This comes in incredibly useful in the Mars fight. I go for Pluck and leave her Zubat on a Sliver, and it misses Toxic. Dodging Toxic for the Progly is huge, as it always skips our first turn with Fake Out and is bulky enough to take a hit or two. Against the Progly, Pluck begins to shine as it does nearly half damage and it steals its berry, allowing me to tank one more hit. It scratches again, taking us into the red as I Pluck again, leaving Progly low as well. It outspeeds, but I still have Quick Attack. Using the priority move, we get the knockout, winning this quite difficult battle on the first attempt. After that, it's Gardenia, who is about as difficult as you would expect for a flying type. Due to Pluck, we almost get through the fight at full health. Cynthia gives us an egg. I don't think she exactly knows what we're doing in this run. Commander Jupiter also ends up being a pushover, where I just spam Pluck my way to victory. Fantina is a completely different story, however. Fantina's difficulty comes from having 2 extremely annoying Pokemon and 1 really strong one. Her Duskull knows Will-O-Wisp, which with Burn's attack drop is crippling. Her Haunter also knows Confuse Ray and Hypnosis. Any one of these 3 moves connecting pretty much guarantees I will lose to Mismagius, who is really strong and hits like a truck with its Psybeams, and can also Confuse Ray me if it wants to. I know from the damage that I deal this fight is winnable without any grinding, but it requires dodging a lot of status moves. So to get the win on this fight, I instead grind attempts to get good enough luck to beat her. After many attempts, I finally get good enough luck. I go for Thief, and her Duskull uses Future Sight. I outspeed next turn and get the KO. Haunter comes out next. I go for the Pluck, getting Haunter low as it goes for Hypnosis and misses. I take the Future Sight damage this turn, but it doesn't do too much. On the following turn, I knock out Haunter and get onto Mismagius with mostly full health and a level up. Mismagius comes out, outspeeds, and takes a chunk of damage off us with Psybeam. However, I go for the Pluck and heal most of the damage I just took. Next turn she goes for the dreaded Confuse Ray. Thankfully we ignore the confusion and connect with Pluck, leaving her in the red. So Fantina goes to the potion next turn. I snap out of confusion on only the second turn and hit another Pluck, putting Mismagius well below half HP. The final turn, and as I've run out of Pluck PP, I go for the Thief. I easily tank her Psybeam and then take her down. This attempt made this fight look pretty easy, but Fantina took 12 attempts due to how many times I hit myself in confusion, fell asleep, or got burned. I honestly never knew this fight could be this annoying. I always thought she was pretty easy on any playthrough I ever did as a kid. Not being able to swap out really makes some unexpected trainers hard. After the surprisingly hard Fantina, it's the always hard Rival 3. And in this fight, he's finally evolved his own Starly, which means we end up running into Intimidate on our first turn. And as all of our attacks are physical, this fight becomes hard. Due to the Intimidate, all of his Pokemon are now able to tank at least 1 return. This battle is definitely doable at this level through getting some lucky crits, which in this gen ignore any attack drops we have. But in the interest of making the win slightly more consistent, I grind out 1 more level on the previous route before trying again. Barry leads with his own Staravia, but on this attempt I get lucky. Instead of it getting in some damage on mine, he instead sets up a double team. Then on the second turn, we manage to land our return, taking down Staravia. Onto Ponyta, and we get a lucky crit, getting past his first 2 Pokemon on full health. We should now be able to beat Prinplup by just trading hits, and we managed to just barely, surviving his second Bubble Beam on just 10 HP. His last Pokemon comes out, and we have super effective Stab Pluck against his frail Roselia, so we one-shot and beat the third rival battle. On the way to Veilstone City, Staravia levels up and evolves into Staraptor, and learns the great coverage move Close Combat that I just can't wait to use. We don't have to wait long to use it as we proceed on to Maylene at 3 hours 38 minutes in-game time, or 1 hour 35 real time. Maylene herself ends up being a clean one-shot sweep. Pluck takes down her front 2 fighting types, and Close Combat hits super effectively, taking down the Lucario. After that clean sweep, I'm feeling confident. We finally got Staraptor, and it's hitting just as hard as I expected. I think Wake will be another easy sweep. The rival fight just outside the gym ended up being similar to the last rival fight, only we hit harder and tank his hits way better. So skipping past rival 4, we take on the pro wrestler Crasher Wake. He leads with Gyarados, which has Intimidate. We do just barely less than half health to it with Return, while his Waterfall is about a 5 hit. Well, this should be easy enough, just Return again, heal, then 2 more returns should take down Gyarados. Then Floatzel comes out. I go for Pluck to steal its berry, and it outspeeds and one-shots with Ice Fang. Every time I fight Wake, I underestimate the Floatzel. It has really high speed, decent bulk, and hits harder than Dad. We're gonna need to grind up until I can 2-shot Gyarados. I grind up 2 more levels and go in again. This time we only take 1 Waterfall from the Gyarados, letting us have enough health to tank an Ice Fang from Floatzel. Thanks to the 2 extra levels I now outspeed Floatzel, I go for the Plucky Pluck to steal its berry, and that lets us tank Ice Fang quite easily. Next turn I hit the more powerful Return, which with the Pluck chip damage does just enough to knock out Floatzel. On mostly full health we move on to the Derpy Quagsire. It can tank a Return quite well and hits with Rock Tomb. Due to Quagsire's lower attack it doesn't do too much, but the speed drops begin to worry me. I might end up being outsped and he gets an extra hit, getting the win. My next Return leaves it on just a sliver as it connects to the second Rock Tomb, which is now halved Staraptor's speed stat. Wake goes for the heal, and I land a high damage range Return, which puts Quagsire back below half, down to the final turn. And do I still outspeed with the speed drops, or will his Rock Tomb finish me off? Staraptor goes first, and gets the knockout. What a close fight. Wake is always such a tough trainer in these runs. His Floatzel is so much more dangerous than it gets credit for. It's definitely a Pokemon I want to use for one of these solo runs. What Pokemon would you guys like to see me use next? Please tell me down in the comments. Anyway, so moving quickly on, Team Galactic channels there in North Korea and test banned weapons in an abandoned marsh about 10 feet away from a major town. How does no one get hurt? Heck, how does this guy set it off and get out just fine, yet it manages to entirely drain a lake, similar size to the marsh, just after? Just don't think too hard about explosives in Pokemon. Cynthia then tells us it's dangerous to go alone. Here, take this pepper spray, which we definitely use responsibly, and not just to get rid of the yellow ducks. The Psyducks. Yeah. Fortunately, all the Pokemon Cyrus uses in his first battle are also weak to chemically delivered war crimes, and go down in 1 hit each. Upon our arrival to Canalave, we fight rival Fievel at around 2 hours 12, real time. This is the first fight where he has everything evolved, and definitely one of his hardest fights. He leads with his own Staraptor, which has its Intimidate, making this whole fight much harder. Every hit that leaves a Pokemon of his in the red or low orange is likely a knockout without the Intimidate, which includes the very first hit of the fight. That leaves his own Staraptor on just the edge of red health. He sets up a double team which does him no good as we outspeed next turn and hit the second return for the knockout. Next up, it's Rapidash, and yet another Pokemon that survives on a tiny amount of HP. It hits for some chip damage with Takedown and leaves itself on a sliver with the recoil. I go for the quick attack next turn and finish it off. Next up, it's Napoleon. Now that it's fully evolved, it resists both of Staraptor's stab typings, but is now weak to close combat. The close combat, however, doesn't deal enough damage to one-shot and lowers our defenses in the process, so his next attack, a Bubble Beam, leaves me on just 13 HP. If he had just used the surf required to reach Canalave, he would have just taken us out there and then. As it is, his next two Pokemon are weak to Stab Pluck, and we use it to one-hit KO both of them. That was a tough fight. Intimidate really makes these battles much harder. Going forward, pay attention to future battles where Pokemon live on low orange/red HP. Intimidate isn't the only factor weakening Staraptor's attacks. Just before Byron, I learned Brave Bird by leveling up on his gym trainers. It's a flying type double edge, and with Stab has a 180 base power. Combined with Staraptor's huge base attack, it should shred whatever bosses are left in Sinnoh. Moving on to the Father of Rock and user of Steel types, it's Byron. Will he be just as much a roadblock as his son? I lead off using Return, as all the Magnemites his gym trainers have are usually taken out in a single return. However, Return here is not even half, and he nearly one-shots me with a Thunderbolt. So I stop messing around and go for the close combat. The first finishes the already damaged Magneton with no issue. Up next it's Bastiodon. This Pokemon is an absolute chungus defensively and has decent health too. It is however 4 times weak to the hugely strong close combat, which just about manages to one-shot. Finally, it's his Steelix, which is another huge wall. It has nearly twice Staraptor's base attack in defense, and on only 30 HP, with close combat defense drops, Staraptor can't take a hit. It unfortunately does tank the hit, and we don't get the anime crit. The main issue with this fight was a bad choice to use Return at the start. I go through again, only using close combat, and the second time I get to Steelix, it sets up Sand instead of doing huge damage with literally any move. Well, I'll take Byron throwing and keep on going. Team Galactic continues to violate international law with more test banned weapons, this time deployed to small lakes. This however doesn't really involve us, as we're only a child, so we'll ignore it and whatever easy battles are there. Next on our Gym Badge campaign, it's the Ice-type leader, Candice. She does have a type advantage over our plucky flying type, but we more than likely outspeed and deal huge neutral or super effective damage to her entire team. So let's see how it goes. And the fight is a clean one-shot sweep. Sneasel is frail, so Return is a one-shot which keeps our defenses up. Next up is Abomasnow, which sets up Hail. It is also grass type, so it's weak to flying, and Brave Bird is a one-shot. Piloswine is next, and it's weak to fighting, so I close combat, and it goes down in 1. Nice. Finally, it's Frostlass. It's frail but part ghost, so I go for the Brave Bird to do as much damage as I can, and it gets a Snow Veil miss. Are you kidding me? That's only 1 double team worth of dodge. Well, I try again, the next attempt goes about the same, but this time I connect with Brave Bird and send that ghost to the Shadow Realm. With Candice down and our 7th gym badge in hand, it's at this point in Pokemon where the bad guy summons the legendary on the box art, or in this case, nearly all the Sinnoh legendaries. However, first we need to listen to what Cyrus thinks about feelings. Thank you, Cyrus. Very insightful. Cyrus 2 and Saturn 2 both end up being very quick return spams, so we'll move on to the next kind of hard fight, the Jupiter plus Saturn Force Double. On the Gastrodon solo run, this was an easy sweep as both Earthquake and Surf hit all opponents in double battles. However, in this run, it's much tougher, and it was made even harder as just before this fight and the required double battle, my Staraptor got poisoned, and I don't have any poison heals with me. I try my hardest to get through Jupiter plus Saturn, but due to Barry's mostly useless Munchlax and the sheer number of Pokemon that have to be beaten, this battle is not possible with poison. This means I have to go and fly to a Pokemon Center to heal up and buy some extra full heals and potions, then reclimb up to Spear Pillar. It adds an extra 3 minutes unnecessarily, which sucks for Staraptor's overall time. The next fight with Jupiter and Saturn is still a bit of a slog, due to them setting up Reflect, having Steel types, and Barry's useless Munchlax. In fact, I get so sick of its useless stockpiling that I just remove the problem. Surprisingly, it's probably correct to help KO his Munchlax, as once it's fainted, his Rapidash comes out, and that actually helps take down the Bronzors. However, the Bronzors still take so long to go down that the Reflect wears off just as they faint. This allows the rest of the battle to be a relatively easy return and Brave Bird sweep. Still, this is another surprisingly hard battle, especially without moves that hit both opponents. Cyrus illegally special summons both Dialga and Palkia. This angers Gardenia, so it's up to us to stop them both in the Distortion mode. We reach Cyrus at 10 hours 37 in-game time, or 3 hours 26 real time. The previous two Cyrus fights were on the easier side, hence why they were glossed over. However, this one is a roadblock, a major one. We get past his Houndoom easily enough with close combat, then his Weavile comes out, hits a fake out, then survives return on a Sliver and hits a critical Ice Punch, sending us packing. I'm not sure how much that crit mattered, as close combat defense drops might guarantee the KO, but I'll try again for science. This time against Weavile, I go for the Brave Bird, which is a guaranteed KO, and we move on to his Gyarados. Gyarados has Intimidate, and that cripples us. Brave Bird does around 2/3 damage to Gyarados, who hits back with an Ice Fang and gets the knockout. This isn't gonna work. After the Intimidate, I'm not going to be able to one-shot any of his Pokemon, so I'm definitely taking hits, and if I'm going to take hits in a fight, close combat cannot be used turn 1. After many more attempts, I decide to leave the Distortion World and grind one more level to consistently take out Weavile and Gyarados with 1 and 2 returns respectively. I try a few more, and on the 6th attempt at level 60, I manage to get a successful attempt. The winning run isn't too special of a fight, I just use return until I win and avoid being burnt, confused or critted. It only took so many attempts because you get so many opportunities to get crits or status moves, as all his Pokemon are either 2 hits or only a small range to get a one shot like his Weavile. Unfortunately, due to how long this took, the speed part of this solo run has been wrecked here. I definitely think Staraptor could get a faster time than the one I get, as I'm still getting better at playing through Sinnoh. I also think that in future runs I should disable battle animations, as that alone might take 20 minutes or so off the end time. What are your thoughts on this? I really like how they look, they're really nostalgic for me, but I also want to get better time, so personally I would be for dropping them. At the end of the day, it's more of an aesthetics decision, so I want you guys to decide on it. As long as most solo speedruns are done with or without the battle animations, their times will be consistent with each other. Just let me know what you guys think. Anyway, with all that, we just barely get the win against Cyrus, with 4 HP left. Then we face down the Pokemon deity of Antimatter, who really likes purple Pokeballs. With that, we move on to the last leg of Platinum. You would think that Volkner would be a tough fight due to his typing, and he does indeed take multiple attempts. However, this happens only because Raichu has static, and I came into this fight without full return PP. After a few attempts, I use an Ether on return and then get a fight where I don't get paralyzed and one-shot sweep with return. All in all, he only took an extra minute more than he should have done. After Volkner, I make my way through Victory Road, pick up the TM for Roost, and then challenge the final 6 trainers in Sinnoh. These are my stats going into the last rival and Elite Four, and did you see it? My Staraptor all this time has had the modest nature. For those watching who don't know how natures work, they change 2 of your stats by plus 10% and minus 10%. We just so happen to get a modest nature, which has to be one of the worst natures a Staraptor can get. It lowers our attack by 10% and increases our special attack by 10%. This is what I mean when I said that Intimidate wasn't the only thing stopping Staraptor to get one-hit KOs in their rival 5-0 fight. In fact, almost every fight where Pokemon have held on with either a Sliver or in low orange would have been one-shots with even a neutral nature. I wanted to focus your guys' attention on this because I think Staraptor could quite easily clear this game an hour faster with a neutral or plus attack nature, and could possibly do it 5 or more levels lower. Just keep this in mind as we're going through these last 6 fights. Anyway, moving back to the gameplay, in my opinion these are the hardest 6 back-to-back fights in any mainline Pokemon game. Let's see how our Staraptor fares with this challenge. Before we can go on to the Pokemon League proper, we have the last fight with Barry, and this is a tough one. The combination of our bad nature and him leading with Intimidate makes this fight tough. The first attempt is a slow loss due to getting chip damage from each of his Pokemon. As I lose the fight due to a number of pretty small hits, I decide to get the TM for Roost and teach it over Quick Attack. You would think that would make this fight easy, but it still takes quite a number of attempts due to paralysis from Body Slam or Bounce, and his Rapidash only being a 50-50 to one-shot with Brave Bird. After quite a few more attempts, I get a successful battle. The biggest issue in this fight was choosing when to roost back up. It was possible to get Snorlax without roosting, but this meant taking more body slams and having more chance to be paralyzed. Roosting on Napoleon was the most consistent strategy I found for this fight. Apart from that, it's pretty simple. Up next it's Aron. and as we all know, Bug is by far the worst type, and this time I come with a super effective stab type. Omega is frail and goes down the single Brave Bird. Drapion is much tankier, but I still go for my strongest move. It manages to hang on with low orange, I take the recoil damage, then it hits with Ice Fang. I didn't realize it had this, and came quite close to being knocked out, but Staraptor just manages to hang on. As I know I outspeed, I finish Drapion off with a return. Next comes his Vespiquen, which has Power Gem, a rock type move. I go for Roost, and while it's a flying type recover, it also gets rid of the flying type for return, which makes Power Gem only neutrally effective on Staraptor. With Vespiquen's low attack stat, it does very little damage. After I've healed up, I go back on the offensive. Vespiquen goes down in 2 returns, Heracross is KO'd by a 4 times effective Brave Bird, finally his Scizor goes down to a return and Brave Bird combo. Aron goes down in the first attempt, wasn't even close, except for the Ice Fang. After Aron, it's Bertha. And while ground isn't effective against flying, she has 2 very bulky rock types, and as Aron has just taught me, I need to watch out for coverage moves her other Pokemon have. She leads with Whiscash, I go for the Brave Bird and manage to get the 1-hit KO. Next up it's Gollum, I go for close combat, and it survives. Then it hits back with a Thunder Punch. I know Gollum is low enough she'll heal, so I go for the return, then outspeed it and hit with close combat for the knockout. Next up it's Rhyperior, and if close combat doesn't one-shot Gollum, it won't take down Rhyperior. Still, I go for it and see if I can crit. I don't, and she takes me down with a bug move. For shame. I won't stand for this insult, using bug type moves is just wrong. If close combat doesn't one-shot, then I should replace it, as Steel Wing will also 2-shot but not cause defense drops when I use it. I try again with a new move. I get to Rhyperior with a lot more HP, but it manages to land a rock move that ends up wrecking me. I think this is doable with either a Steel Wing defense up or taking the Rock Wrecker on a Roost turn. With this in the back of my mind, I try one last time. Again the Whiscash is an Oko, then comes Gollum. I go for the Steel Wing and do just half damage, while it hits a Thunder Punch, also doing half damage. I outspeed and finish the Gollum. Unfortunately I don't get a defense up before the Rhyperior comes out, so I have to go for the Roost. I swear the AI knows what move you're going to use. I roost 3 times to try and stay high HP, and on the first turn I don't go for a Roost, she tries to land her Rock Cracker. Thankfully it does miss, so I go for another Roost on the following turn. Rhyperior finally lands Rock Wrecker while I don't have the flying type and I'm full HP. I still only just survived the hit. However, due to using Rock Wrecker, it has to spend a turn recharging, which means I can get 2 free back-to-back hits, and this ends up taking down her Rhyperior. Once her Rhyperior is down, she's out of Rock-type Pokemon, but this doesn't mean we're out of the woods yet. Next comes out Gliscor. I go for Roost and dodge super effective damage from a Thunder Fang. I go for Roost again to be extra safe, and then get the knockout over 2 turns with return. Last up is Hipaodon, which goes down in another 2 returns. I honestly thought this fight would be a lot harder. Her Rhyperior is a huge threat with rock type Hyper Beam, and almost all her Pokemon have a coverage move for flying type. I guess Roost is just really strong. Do you guys have any feelings on healing moves? Should I try to avoid using them? Let me know what you think. Up next, it's Flint. I'm most worried about electric coverage moves from his Infernape and Magmortar going into this fight. And hey, check out Staraptor's level. Nice. Anyway, so Flint's Houndoom goes down in 1, Infernape goes down in 1, Magmortar goes down in 1, then Flame Body activates and burns me. And burn half the attack stat. Next out is Flareon. I go for the Roost and it hits an Overheat for massive damage, leaving me on only 24 health after the burn damage. Well, no problem, I outspeed, I'll just Roost up. Wait, it has quick attack? So that just happened. This fight, however, is more than doable. I just need to dodge the Flame Body burn. Next fight, that's exactly what I do, taking out his entire team with one-shots. Next up, it's Lucian. And while I came to respect his team last run with Gastrodon, his team is as frail as Flint, with the exception of Bronzong. And so they all go down in 1 hit, except the Bronzong who takes 3. I love it when battles go this smoothly. You know which fight doesn't go smoothly though? The next one. I get to Sinfear at 13 hours 32 in game, and nearly bang on 5 hours real time. Anyone want to guess how long I spend on this last fight? The first battle with Cynthia gets off to a decent start as I crit her Spiritomb before it gets a chance to do anything. I found out in a later attempt that my Staraptor needs this crit to one-shot the Spiritomb. Next up, her Togekiss comes out. I think that it's Fairy type and go for the Steel move, despite Fairy not being a type for 2 generations. However, Steel Wing misses anyway, and Togekiss does huge damage with Shockwave. Well, no matter, I'll roost back up. Cynthia predicts this roost, and hits a now super effective Aura Sphere. I'm left on 8 HP. I roost again, she puts me back to 69 HP. Nice. I know I won't win this war of attrition, so I go for the Brave Bird to see what my strongest move will do. Only about 2/3 damage. I don't know if a good nature would have made this a one-shot, but as it is, I need a crit here to one-shot her Togekiss. I don't know if I 100% need the crit to win the fight, as I do outspeed, but Togekiss hits me for 3/4 of my health. It'll all come down to what she sends out next, which is what we find out on the next fight, and it's Lucario, which uses extreme speed, which will always outspeed us, and that takes down the rest of my health. So I think about using Substitute. If I could get to Togekiss with it up, I think the rest of the fight is easily doable. However, a Spiritomb hits for more than 1/4 of the Staraptor's max HP, so I can't use it. With the TMs I currently have, I don't think I have a better strategy available, so I grind out attempts hoping for a crit. It's not the best or most consistent strategy, but sometimes that's the nature of these kind of runs. And speaking of nature, our Staraptor's nature isn't helping us out here. With a neutral or plus attack nature, we'd be able to one-shot that Spiritomb consistently, which would let me get onto the Togekiss with way more HP, making the rest of the fight a lot more consistent. I also decided to use the one rare candy I found this run to boost my level, make me that little bit extra tanky, so maybe this fight is more consistent. After many tries, I finally get the winning battle. Her Spiritomb comes out, and this time I spam it down with Steel Wing. It may deal less damage than Brave Bird, but most of the time she'll survive Brave Bird and then heal back up with a potion, which would mean hitting it 3 times anyway, and therefore taking 3 lots of recoil damage from Brave Bird. In the end, I can get onto Togekiss with slightly more health by using Steel Wing and Roost mixed together. This also comes with a small chance of a defense up, which may better let me tank the rest of her team going forwards. I get to the Togekiss and go for a return and get a crit. This is one of the few runs I've managed to do this, and I know it's winnable from here. I just need to not mess up. Next up, it's her Lucario, who is way less bulky than Togekiss and takes neutral damage from flying. I go for the Brave Bird and get the 75% chance to one-hit it. Out next comes her Milotic. I know it will go for the Ice Beam, and so I go for the Roost to get rid of the flying type and heal up. It also lets me see what damage Ice Beam does, and I know I'll survive a super effective hit. So I go for a turn and put it into red health. Brave Bird wouldn't have dealt enough damage to one-shot it here, so I have to go for the double tap with return. I do just barely tank the Ice Beam on 14 HP, but I know she's going to heal here, so I'm free to go for a double Roost and heal back most of my HP. I go for a turn again, putting Milotic back onto low HP, and for some reason she goes for Mirror Coat against my physical attacker. Well, I'll take it, as we take down her Milotic on full HP. Next, it's the penultimate Pokemon of the run, and Cynthia's ace, Garchomp. I hit the return, which does just about half, but then Garchomp eats its berry, putting it out of return range, while her Dragon Rush does just over half damage to me. Return and Brave Bird are not guaranteed knockouts, so I go for the Roost. This will lose to a crit, but I'm hoping Dragon Rush's low accuracy will pay off for me. Thankfully, it does, and she misses. I go for the return, and Garchomp misses again. I outspeed and take it down with a final return. I can't help but think I got really lucky here, but then again against Cynthia's Garchomp, I think most Pokemon need to get quite lucky to win. Finally, out comes the Roserade, and while a fast Pokemon, it isn't faster than Staraptor, who takes it down with a Brave Bird. With that, we've beaten Cynthia. And as soon as I leave the battle, I call time. We beat Pokémon Platinum with only a Staraptor in 5 hours and 26 minutes of real time. Good job to anyone who guessed about half an hour for the Cynthia fight. I do play the game at 3 times speed, and without that the Cynthia fight would have taken nearly an hour and a half. I get to the Hall of Fame and register the Staraptor, and find out that I beat Pokémon Platinum with an in-game time of 13 hours and 45 minutes. For a first attempt, I'm pretty proud of this time. I think it's a lot better than any of my normal playthroughs of the game as a kid. However, I'm pretty sure if I did this again, I could take a lot of the time off. Staraptor is a great Pokemon, and it definitely was crippled by its modest nature. I do also think in future runs I'll change the in-game settings to remove animations, unless you guys really want me to keep them. Hopefully the next Pokemon I use will get a far more deserving time. As for the next Pokemon, I'm not entirely sure. I was thinking about a fast special sweeper to see if dodging Intimidates makes a big difference with the last rival and Cyrus fights, but if you guys suggest something in the comments, I'm very likely to use it. To everyone who got this far, please consider liking, commenting, and subscribing. They've really helped me out, and as I'm such a small channel, any comment you guys leave I'll be sure to respond to. Again, thank you guys so much for watching, I really hope you enjoyed, and if you didn't, please tell me why. Anyway, have a great day.